Okay, welcome everybody to the Business Accelerants Memos. I'm here today with Danielle Dinkelman. Her practice is focused on helping people be very well mentally and physically in business. CEOs in particular, I've seen some articles recently how each of them has their own specific way of getting up each morning, whether it be meditation or exercise or something, or perhaps in the middle of the day, taking 15 minutes to do meditation to be able to improve themselves and their operations. So, welcome, Danielle, and tell us a little bit about yourself and a little bit more about your practice.
Sounds good. Yeah, thanks for having me, Paul. This is wonderful, and I love what you just shared. It's amazing what our habits and our routines can do to either support us or thwart us. So, yeah, by way of introduction, I'm the co-founder and CEO of Advanced Corporate Wellness, and we specialize in employee wellness coaching programs for businesses. And what that means is we give each individual inside of a company that wants to work on themselves, whether that's personal or professional, health and wellness, or work related goals, career related goals. We give them a personal coach to be an accountability partner, to reflect with, to kind of increase that self awareness that helps us show up at our best in all the places.
The companies that you work with, are they 10 employees, 100 employees, 1,000 employees?
Great question. Currently, we've been in business for almost 4 years, and so far we've worked mostly with teams under 100, anywhere from 3 or 4 individuals to 20, 40, 60, and on up. So it's been a focus of ours to support smaller teams. There's a lot of employee wellness support available in the market to large corporations, kind of over 2 to 500 employees up to into the thousands. But there's really not much available to more of kind of the small and mid-sized groups. So that's been our focus, and it's been going really well.
I'm surprised by a group as small as 3 or 4 because I
Mhm.
wouldn't think they could afford the extra employee benefit that this is providing.
That is how affordable and accessible it is. We've designed it with that in mind, and it's a bit of our passion to help those folks that don't have access to all the bells and whistles in their benefits plan. It's been really rewarding to do that work.
What do you see as kind of a trend in what people are feeling in their business? Are they stressed out? I think on your website you use the term burned out. I remember feeling that way in the corporate world. Is
Mhm.
it they don't know how to deal with personal issues outside of work that's affecting their work? Do you see any trends?
Oh my goodness, yes. I mean, we started this company from our own lived experience with corporate burnout. My husband and I, I supported him through a 12-year corporate executive career, kind of in mid-sized manufacturing companies, and I watched him burn out 4 times in 12 years. So the pressure that executives, and then we're hearing a lot of this around middle management, but even down to your frontline workers, there's the stress inside of the company itself. There's so many pressures going on in our economy, in our political landscape. There's a lot. All of the supply chain issues that came out of COVID that we're still recouping. There's so many factors that impact our stress, right? And then you look, that's just on on like the professional side. You could turn and look at the personal side of, what we're hearing, my coaching staff that works with folks inside of these companies. What we hear is, a lot of mental health challenges, anxiety and depression, a lot of family and relationship challenges. Life has no end to the challenges that we can face. And the thing about it, and the trend, I would say, Paul, is that the employees as well as the employers, more and more over the last, I would say, the last 5 to 10 years, have started to acknowledge the fact that we don't leave those things at the door when we come to work. We might shove them into a tiny little box and try to contain them, but we are whole people living whole, sometimes complex and challenging lives. And I think it's really inspiring to see how employers are willing to take a closer look at that and ask themselves, what am I doing as an employer to support and resource my team and myself to be able to navigate these challenges? And so one of the ways that we've landed on that is providing this individualized coaching, and it's amazing the impact that it can have. But yeah, I think that trend of just work, we hear a lot about work-life integration and work-life harmony, whole self employees, that sort of thing is more in the mainstream now, which is it's progress, I think, but it comes with challenges of its own.
You say individualized coaching, which implies, okay, I don't have a specific template that I'm going to use for everybody. I'm going to walk them through mission and vision, and I'm going to do this personality test or whatever. So, how do you begin working with, let's start with the CEO of a company with 50 employees. What
Mhm.
what might be the first thing you would do to figure out what is the right individualized coaching for them?
Great question. I would say it starts with relationships. It starts with simply getting that relationship started between the CEO and their wellness coach. And we do a lot. We do have, personality assessments that we make available to people. We have a wellness wheel exercise that we invite people to go through. And, none of it, of course, is required. We have some structure if you want to use it, and we have a lot of adaptability and flexibility if you don't want to use it. So we do offer those things. And if they do take advantage of those tools, that gives our coaches a lot of information on what your strengths are, what your values are, and where you see yourself as a bit of a snapshot when we look at that wellness wheel in particular. So that gives us a starting point of, who is this person? What do they value? What do they want out of their life and their career? And where are they seeing some challenges and some space where they want to improve and they want to change? And sometimes it also reveals what they don't want to touch with a 10-foot pole.
Hmm.
And so that individualization is very much rooted in the relationship and the rapport that our coach builds with that individual. And, we'll even ask very overt questions like, are you a really goal oriented person, or are you a little bit more of a go with the flow type of person? Would this approach be supportive, or would this approach be supportive? And we really cater and tailor that to the individual. We are a lot of the coaching we do is rooted in behavior change science and what's called coaching psychology. So we're very focused on engaging with the person in a way that's going to help empower and activate them, but in a way that is very, very respectful of their autonomy. So that's maybe a little bit of our approach.
So one of the things that I deal with, I know, is how well are people matched? And you just
Mm,
basically said the coach has to be in some way build a relationship with the CEO in this particular case.
mhm,
In in some of the things that I've done, we will take a team and they'll do some sort of a personality or culture or some sort of test, and
mhm.
then we'll get everybody together to determine how they're matching or not matching to make sure everybody is rowing together in the same boat and things.
Yeah.
Is there something that you would do between the coach and the CEO to help find a good match between them?
Mm. Yeah, we have an intake process that helps us get a snapshot of who this person is before we match them with one of our coaches. And we do have a bit of a rubric that we use, and that's an ongoing development for us because we do get that question a lot of how do you choose my coach? Of course, what we can always do is make adjustments if things don't tend to gel. I will say in the 4 years that we've been doing this, I would say our retention rate is probably around 80 to 90%, that when you start with a coach, you have a good experience and you stay with that coach. So it's quite rare that we see that there's kind of a irreconcilable mismatch with our coaching relationships. But we are very mindful of that and want to, in that intake process, we let people, let us know what specific things you're looking for in a coach. So yeah, we do give them that
So
opportunity.
that implies to me that your coaching is not just a 1 month, 3 month intervention
Mm-hmm.
kind of thing, but it's continuing over an extended period of time.
Yes.
What do you normally see?
Really, the life of the contract it can become a perpetual relationship, a perpetual support system for these individuals. So, we have contracts with folks that have been with us from the beginning in the 4 years that we've existed, and everywhere in between. And yeah, it's amazing. I call it the kind of tongue in cheek, kind of like the time value of money in investment. There's a time value of coaching when you do let yourself have that feedback loop with yourself and with your coach over time. It's amazing. Think of all the ups and downs you experience in your career, in your family, in your personal life, over months and years and seasons, to have someone that you trust and that has gotten to know you well and is really there to see you be successful in whatever pursuit you have in mind. It's a powerful gift to give another human being. I'm quite passionate about it, obviously, as a coach myself for the last 8 years. That's really why I'm building this company, because I think it's one of the greatest gifts one human can give to another is to help them feel seen and heard. And then what we get to do as skilled coaches is to also guide and empower people in a way that no one else in their life really can. Your parent, your spouse, your child, your best friend cannot coach you in the way that a neutral third party that has skill and experience in that coaching container, it's just not the same. So it's a powerful gift that employers can give to themselves and to their team members.
So you just mentioned 8 years that you've been coaching, and I think earlier I heard you say the company has been in existence for 4 years.
Mhm.
So what had you go from whatever organization you were coaching in previously to making the decision to start your own with your husband?
Yeah, great question. Thank you. The first 4 years, I was focused on building my own private practice. So I was working with private individuals. I built a whole online coaching practice that I connected with folks all over the country and even some international folks, supporting them in their health and wellness goals. But I always knew from day one, when I learned that corporate wellness coaching was a thing, I knew that that was where I wanted to go. But I focused on my private practice first to really get my skills sharp. And boy, I learned a lot in those 4 years of what works and what is it about the coaching training that I received and the frameworks that we use to understand people and behavior change, what works and what doesn't. And so, what we've done with our company now, Advanced Corporate Wellness, is really take what I saw works incredibly well in my private practice, and we've packaged that in now more of a B2B model, making that available to employee groups. Um, it was an incredible experience, and I got to write a book in that time. So if you search my name on Amazon, that'll come up. But just for me, the shift from private practice to moving to this model was really a desire for more impact. I can only do so much as one coach, but I can build a team of coaches and I can build relationships and brand and company level interactions with other companies that we can make this available to more people.
Earlier on, you said that what you do is partially, if not heavily, based on the science of behavioral change.
Mhm.
Tell me a little bit, tell our listeners a little bit about what that science is.
Yeah. Oh, you can't see my face, but I'm smiling really big right now because this is the thing that I get very nerdy about. Yeah, behavior change science has really evolved and developed over the last couple decades. And there's one book that comes to mind by doctors Prochaska. It's actually a husband and wife team that developed a really incredible model. It's a mouthful of a name, but it's called the Trans-Theoretical Model of Change.
Okay.
And it's a five-stage cycle that they've identified through research of how humans make changes in their behavior. And I won't go into all of the details, but that is in large part what our board certified wellness coaches are trained to understand and to utilize in their coaching relationships with folks. So we basically understand those five stages. And when we are starting to work with an individual in our coaching brain, we're asking ourselves, where is this person along this continuum, these stages of change? Are they like, is it not even on their radar that they need to make a change here? Are they thinking about it and aware of it, but not really ready to take action yet? And so on and so forth, all the way up to actively making change or maintaining a new behavior. And so we use that frame to inform our coaching approach, and it's very organic and meets the person where they're at.
I think you just answered one of the questions I had in my head. I wondered if one of those five stages was denial. And one of your things that you said, you didn't use the word denial, but it sounded like uh,
Yeah,
I don't
yeah.
need
In
to
the
make
model, they
change.
call that's the very, very first stage, and it's called pre-contemplation. Like it's not even on their radar. And you can be in that space when you are in denial, when you are aware that there is a problem, but you are not nowhere near willing and able to address it. You're sweeping it under the rug. You don't want to touch it with a 10-foot pole. And there are things that we can do to support folks in that stage. It's tricky, but it can be done.
So a lot of what I do is more on the financials and product introduction, getting teams to work together and perform. And so it's very easy for me to, in that area, come up with hard monetary key performance indicators.
Yep.
You're dealing with the little more softer side of things.
Yeah.
And
Subtle, nuanced. Absolutely.
and I do recall one thing I did when I was at Daimler Truck where I had a group of 200 people and we had to go through some culture change. Trying to measure that and sell that to a CFO that I'm
Mhm.
going to spend this money over here and here's what we're going to get for it.
Mhm.
Um, how do you approach that when you're dealing with something? How do you measure success? That's a
Mhm.
podcast by Carl J. Cox. That's very good as well. So, how do you measure success with a CEO?
Absolutely. So, what we look at first is engagement, right? First of all, when we are engaging with a company, there almost always has to be values alignment with our approach and their company's values. If there's anything in their company's DNA that says, "Hey, we care about people," that's a great fit for us.
Okay.
If that is not high on their priorities of values, then I'm not going to waste their time. And I frankly don't, I can't help them. They need to care about the human element of the work that they do. They have to acknowledge that is important. So it starts there. When we roll out a program, we often see anywhere from 20 to 40% of the employee population utilizing the coaching services. So that is kind of our standard that we look for on engagement and adoption of our program. So if we can hit that target, we call that a success. To give you some perspective, if you are familiar with employee assistance programs, traditionally, $6 per employee per month, uh, and it makes counseling and therapy and other services available as a resource that folks can
Mhm.
access. That As a national average, our EAPs are in the single digits of utilization. So on average, you're anywhere from 5 to 8% of your employee population is actually utilizing those services. So the fact that a program like ours performs at 20 to 40 um, is pretty powerful. So when we don't see that happening, there's all sorts of things we can do, but we partner with leadership to really make this program something that they are rolling out as a bit of a campaign, a bit of a culture adjustment or culture supporter. So we do a lot with them on that, on the communication side. So measuring success is we want to see that 20 to 40% engagement. And then we want to see retention over time, that people are utilizing it over time. Some other things that we look at, we do measure, sometimes we can do this, at a 3 or 6 month interval when it's a new program, but at the bare minimum annually, we send out a feedback survey. And what we see is on average, we're seeing 30% improvement in stress levels, 30% improvement in focus and productivity, and 15 to 30%, depends on the sector we're working in, improvement in healthy habits. So when we see that happening, those are measurable. It's self-reported. We have people say, rate themselves, like, where were you with stress before you started working with a coach? And where would you rate your stress levels now? Right? And so we go through that process. So we found ways to communicate and measure our impact, and that's some of the ways that we've done that. So, which comes back to, okay, how does that translate to ROI? Really, that's the question that you're asking, right?
Yes.
When you look at the simple math of retention and turnover, look it up. There is a very powerful formula out there. And I go into this in one of the talks that I give, that if you think about it, you are probably going to have to pay up to 125% of a person's annual salary to replace that person. Okay, there's
Hmm. Yes.
high costs for replacing folks. There's a range depending on what level of the company they're in, but especially upper leadership. You're going to be working with a recruiting professional probably. There's all sorts of expenses and time and productivity loss, knowledge loss. There's so many things. So if we could instead insulate and support an individual in finding a healthy and sustainable way for them to engage with their career, with their work, prevent the stress and the burnout, and ultimately the turnover, yeah, you're making your money back in spades. So that's how I usually approach the ROI conversation.
When you started down that path and said engagement and retention, it wasn't what I was expecting because you talked in terms of retention within the program you're offering
Mm-hmm.
and engagement in terms of the number of people who are taking advantage of this offering from the employer. Whereas I was thinking in terms of all the surveys I see where they say only 30% of employees are engaged and the rest are just there filling a seat and not really of much help to you. And retention would be, as you were just now saying, more, well, I don't have to replace people. My turnover has gone down.
Right.
Um, do you have any comments about that bigger type of engagement and how that would be measured uh, in a company of, say, 50 people? How engaged are you with the company, its culture, its mission, whatever?
Mm-hmm. Wow, that's a huge question that is often out of my reach in what I get to do and impact in the company. What I get to do is the leading indicators to some of those pieces.
Well, those are
Um,
better than trailing indicators
they
usually.
sure are. They sure are. And I really believe that if we can see engagement and retention inside of our wellness coaching services, you will absolutely see improvements in engagement and retention of the right people
Ah.
in the right seats inside of the organization as a whole. But I appreciate your question because it's a really important one. If anyone were to look up our website, you would see our logo. It's two interlocking hexagons. And one is slightly larger, one is slightly smaller. The reason that we have that logo is exactly kind of what you're playing at here, which is the kind of that symbiotic, what hopefully should be a symbiotic relationship between the well being of an organization, the structure of it, the leadership, all of the systems and processes that make it work, and then the people, those individual people that have their own systems and processes, but we call those habits and routines and relationships and all sorts of things. Both of those entities are multidimensional, which is why we have hexagons instead of circles. When you are doing your part as a leader, as a CEO, as a leadership team, if you're working with someone like you, Paul, that's looking at those dynamics within the company, uh, if you're doing everything you can over there, yeah, my program, this coaching, this individual support, oh my goodness, it's only going to amplify what you're doing on the organizational side. But what I'm getting to do is reach into that personal side that you cannot and should not be reaching into. And we're bridging that gap for you. So we get to go in and really optimize and activate human beings in a very appropriate and respectful way. It's a really beautiful thing when we do see that synergy, and that's why I love working with companies and leaders that are doing their part. They are taking responsibility for those systems and processes on the organizational side, and then man, what I and my team get to do just amplifies that.
Danielle, one of the things that I come across in my practice is the limitations of the CEO in helping the company to grow. There's
Mhm.
something wrong with that person, or in the smaller and medium-sized private companies, that person becomes the person to whom every decision has to go to.
Yeah.
And one of the things that I need to do with them is to help them understand that they are the problem.
Yep.
They're in that denial stage, uh, the pre-concept or whatever that you called it earlier. Um, and many times in my kind of practice, you interview the employees, or the leaders, as well as the CEO, and you find that the CEO is preventing the company from advancing and is the one that's creating the stress.
Yeah.
Um, I assume you see that too. And what are some in your program would deal with that somehow? So let me put this out there. So in this particular case, Danielle, the CEO has hired you and he says, "My people are the problem. I want you to go fix them. I want you to make them healthy, wealthy, and wise, and do better job for me." And then you try to do that, and you find out that you're not going to be able to do that because the CEO is the problem. Does that happen?
It can. It can. I will say that our program does best in companies that the leader already has a high level of self awareness and a
Yeah.
high level of a growth mindset, right? And sometimes I've connected with folks when that's kind of emerging, it's new, and maybe they're starting to realize, oh, I've got my own personal work to do, right? So when we bring our program in, if I do have a leader that's saying, they're pointing the finger at their people, um, I will sometimes, say, we see this program work best when we lead by example. So I would invite that CEO to participate right alongside their staff members.
Right
We can do that.
alongside, or perhaps for 3 to 6 months before you roll it out to the rest of the company.
Absolutely. That's a great place to start too. Yeah, we've often done pilot programs that start with just the CEO. For example, we just started with a dental practice where we're just working with the owner and his business partner, and then we have plans to roll it out to the rest of the team in the fall.
Yeah,
Yeah,
so
those
much starts at the top, the tone at the top, and
huge.
what's going on there, and trying to get things to happen. So,
It's very powerful, and that's a lot of kind of the consulting side of what I get to do as I work with these leaders, I get to use my coaching skills and hold that mirror up and say, okay, you first. Where do you get to take some ownership? But more importantly, where do you get to lead by example?
What, so you said that you're working throughout the country now. So I'm going to believe that a lot of your coaching can be done via Zoom or Teams or Google Meet or something.
Yeah, all of our coaching is done virtually. Our coaching staff is in almost every time zone. We're spread across the country, and I like it that way. What we get to do is actually really make this light and easy. It's as easy as picking up the phone, and it's a 30-minute phone call once a month with someone that's going to help you move the needle.
For those who might be listening and may not believe this, but at Daimler Truck, several times throughout my career there, and I've been away from Daimler Truck for 13 and a half years now, but I had a private coach for a period of a couple of years that I could access. Again, I never met the person in person. It was always by phone. We didn't have video
Mm-hmm.
on our desks at that point in time. We could only do that in a special room. So it's very powerful to have somebody who is not directly in the situation to be able to provide some thought-provoking questions to make you understand and think through what's going on and where your feelings are versus where your actions are. I'm an engineer by training, so I tend towards the non-emotional things.
Mm-hmm.
I've been married 48 years, but my wife will still ask me, how do you feel about that? And I said, don't ask me how I feel about something. Ask me how I think about it. Ask me how I see it. But I can't respond when you ask the question, feel, because I
Mm-hmm.
don't understand feelings even now. It's a little easier, but it's still tough.
Yeah, you need people that will recognize that in you and meet you where you're at. And yeah, I'm nodding my head in full agreement of how you described that value of having someone that, like you said, is removed from the situation. Um, it's amazing the perspective that that can help people get the clarity. And always, in these coaching containers, it is action oriented. It's always ending the call with, what's your next step? What can you control? What can you do in this situation? It's very empowering.
Hmm. Just before you said that, something occurred to me in terms of um, people from different generations and their expectations and how to deal with that.
Yeah.
Um, so one of the things I deal with is as simple as CEOs expect their people to show up to work on time.
Mm-hmm.
It might be, say, at a dealership, and they have a customer that has decided to bring their car in at 8 o'clock, and they expect the car to be taken at 8 o'clock and start the repair service on it. But the person meanders in possibly later because they haven't been taught the value of timeliness, for instance. So I find uh, that maybe that's culture, I guess. And so I find a lot of CEOs have to work with their people to get them to understand some basics of politeness.
Mm-hmm.
Do you see anything like that?
Those miscommunications, those disconnects are rampant right now. We've never had four distinct generations in the workforce before.
Yeah.
It's really unprecedented. There's some really excellent work being done on understanding that and supporting folks with that. And if I have many opinions on this, but it's, first of all, recognizing that your way isn't the right way and their way isn't the wrong way or the right way either. So it's kind of it comes back to humility and compassion, that if we can try to put ourselves in that person's shoes, and they grew up in a different time, they were taught different things, they were expected different things. If we can put ourselves in each other's shoes and then try to find shared values and meaning and goals and purpose, there's so much work to be done there. But what I see time and time again, I hear it all the time, this frustration, this angst, and it goes both ways. Okay. It is not, um, it's not helpful. It's not productive. If leadership is of a more mature generation and, they're hiring frontline staff that is of this younger generation, you pointing the finger and saying, yeah, gosh, aren't they fill in the blank with whatever label, that is not productive. So yeah, I'll stop there. But if we can help ourselves understand where people are coming from and what they need to get on the same page with you, I really believe that's possible. So I would say that that's a bit, as far as the interpersonal relationships, that is outside of the scope of our program. However, what I love about what we get to do in this dynamic is that, let's say we've got that leader and we've got that frontline staff member. If both of them happen to be working with coaches, and if that interaction or that stress or that frustration comes through into a coaching call, their coach is going to help them process that and help them see this from the other person's perspective and explore a productive way of engaging with that person and kind of meeting in the middle, right?
Okay.
So
And ending the session with what are the next steps? What can you control?
exactly.
Maybe it's
What
a
conversation?
conversation that you have privately with the individuals. Maybe it's a new human resources policy that is put together with the help of the people themselves to what we will all agree to and abide by.
Yeah.
Uh,
Yeah. Yeah. And so there is certainly, the question you bring up, the issue, there are things that need to happen on that personal level and that a program like ours could support. And there's certainly things that could be done on an organizational level. Gosh, one of my favorite things is like call out the elephant in the room, right? Have have a team building day or that you bring somebody in to talk about these differences and these discrepancies and create understanding and shared language for, yeah, we see this differently. We think of this differently. We were raised differently. I don't understand you. If we can call out that elephant in the room, it's amazing what kind of progress can be made. There's a couple people that I've met over the years that do just that. There are folks out there that are doing it's actually generational diversity work. So if you Google that for generational diversity coaching and consulting or training, like there's so much progress that could be made there if people were willing to stop labeling, stop the frustration, get a little bit of facilitating to happen and create a shared language and create some psychological safety around what do we do when this is showing up and how can we move through this productively. And there's a whole lot of other things. That's a whole other conversation, Paul.
so I think we've been going a good bit of time here. If somebody wants to reach out to you, Danielle, where are the places to do so? I know you have a website. I'm sure you have a LinkedIn profile. In your case, you might be on Instagram or Facebook for whatever type of people are out there. Where should they reach out to you?
Yeah, thank you. And this conversation has been delightful. Thanks for having me. Best place to get in touch with me is LinkedIn. It's a great spot to go. I think I'm the only Danielle Dinkelman on LinkedIn. If you spell my name right, you'll find me. And I love to connect with folks there. But email Danielle at acwcoaching.com. And of course, our website, acwcoaching.com, is a great resource if you just want to poke around a little bit. We've got a 60-second explainer video on there that kind of helps people visualize, well, what does this actually look like, and how is this going to help my people, and how's this going to help my company? I appreciate the opportunity to get this in front of more folks. I think the small and mid-sized groups don't really know that this is a thing and that they could get a lot of benefit from it. So I
No,
appreciate the time.
I think you're right that the smaller companies don't understand
Mhm.
that this kind of a coaching is available to them for their employees. They just think they can't do anything and they complain about not working together. And this is great that something that has been available in the corporate world, you found a way to scale down and individualize to the point where it can be offered effectively with a great return on investment to the smaller companies. You said under 100 employees, as I recall.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. Yep.
All right. Well, thank you, Danielle. I look forward to watching some of your posts on LinkedIn and hope that others will take advantage of the resource you have to offer. Thanks
Wonderful.
much.
Thank you.